In this video, we're going to go over how to export and create yourself an Excel template to be able to update your data. The objectives of this video are going to be ensuring that you're working with the right table. If you're not a developer, if you're not a consultant that uses the tables behind the scenes all the time, I'm going to show you how you can validate that you're dealing with the right place in Business Central, how you can export your worksheet file, how you can ensure that you're including and excluding fields, and how you can filter. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we have found the right table. So here I am inside of Business Central. So if you're not a consultant, if you're not a developer, at times it can be difficult to know, am I dealing with the right table? What I recommend to validate that is to navigate in Business Central to where you expect the data to be when you do the import, and then we can inspect that page to validate that we've got what we need. So I'm going to go to my customers list. I am going to then open up a customer card. It does not matter which customer I choose because I'm not dealing with this specific customer. I'm dealing with the table that holds my customers. So let's say, as an example, I needed to update the salesperson code on a couple of my customers because I had some changes in my organization. So I would expect that the salesperson card on this page is what is being updated. So now that I know in Business Central I'm in the right place, I can do Control-Alt-F1, or I can click here on the question mark, I can go to Help and Support, and then down here I can say Inspect Pages and Data. What this does is it's going to open up a page inspection, and here I can see that it's table 18. So now I am armed with the information that I need to be working with table 18 in order to make changes to the customer card information that I see. Selecting the right fields is super important. And the reason that I say that is because you only want to affect change on certain fields that you're dealing with, not necessarily export a template with every single field where I have the opportunity in Excel to potentially enter data into a cell that I really don't want to change or make an update that I really don't want to import back into my system. So what I always recommend to people is export your template to include only the fields that you absolutely need to minimize the risk that you're going to import the template back and update fields and data that you don't want to. How do you do that? So now that I know what table I need to deal with, I'm going to go to my configuration worksheet. This is a page that I prefer to use if I'm only dealing with one table at a time. This allows me to make sure that, again, I'm only focused on the table and the fields that I want. I can assign a package code based on a package that already exists in my system, or I can create a new package code that maybe has just fields or filters based on what I'm intending to do with the import. So the difference between a configuration package and a configuration worksheet is a configuration package allows you to be able to update multiple tables in one process. You can set a processing order so that it will apply data in the order in which you select it. The package is also where the system knows what fields and filters have been selected so that your data lands in the right spot. If it's me and I want to be super safe, I will enter in the table data that I want. And then what I may do here is under Assign Package, you may want to create a new package that's something more descriptive to what you're actually doing. So change salesperson on customer. So package name, change salesperson on customer. And again, here I can say I want to deal with table 18. On a package code, you do have the ability here to say delete table data before processing. This is very important. If you have this selected, then when you do the import, it will delete everything in that table, or try to, before it imports. This is not something that you would want turned on if you just want to update a field. So again, be very careful, be aware that it's here, consult with your partner on the uses of it, make sure you're using it correctly. This just lets me know any related tables. I can take a look at those so I can include them. But here I'm going to assign this specific package to my worksheet line so that if I'm ever looking back later, it could help me to see before I even go into my fields what it is this package was created for and what I intended to do. Under line, you can go ahead and select on fields. This allows you to include or exclude any field in your export. This is really important for a couple of reasons, I think. One, I do not want to myself have to deal with a spreadsheet with a bunch of extra columns. I don't want to give a spreadsheet to colleagues, especially ones that maybe aren't comfortable with Excel, a bunch of extra columns that they don't need. Also, like I said, if I include a field and I include it as part of my Excel template, when I import it back, the system will read the data in those extra columns, and it could overwrite what's in my database with data based on the Excel file. So if I'm not dealing with the address, if I'm not dealing with the account number, if I'm not dealing with the phone number, there is no value in including it in my export. All I'm doing is increasing the risk that if something gets put into the Excel sheet incorrectly, I could push it back to my BC incorrectly. So it's very important to note that you have an effect on your database here. So you really want to be careful with the data, with the fields, with the filters that you're including. So I could go ahead and clear absolutely everything, and then I could choose to include only what's relevant for this export. Now you'll notice this first line, I was not able to clear. That's because it's the primary key. The system needs this to validate that I put the right information to the right customer. So then what I can do is I can go ahead and just include any of the fields that actually make sense for this process. So I'm going to do just customer, the name, and the salesperson code. You also have the ability to not validate the field. So one of the great things about using configuration worksheets is that it will validate your data to make sure that you're not including too many characters, that you're not using a payment term that doesn't exist, or in this case, a salesperson that doesn't exist. You can turn that off. I would not recommend it because, again, you want to have good data imported into your system. If a field is related to another table in your system, you're able to see that. But again, in this video, we're just going to focus on what we need for an export. So what I've done here is I've included only the fields that I would want to be part of my Excel export. Next thing we want to talk about is how do I filter to the right data? So same as what we saw under line, how we could include or exclude certain fields, we can leverage here filters. You can go ahead, select the field you would like to filter on, and then you can enter in the field filter value. So if you're dealing with really big lists in your system, a big list of customers, a big list of vendors, a big list of items, just the same way I wouldn't want to affect fields, I don't necessarily want to affect irrelevant data records. So if, let's say, the salesperson change only mattered to my Canadian customers, I may want to add a filter on maybe a posting group, because maybe I've indicated the customer posting group is Canadian or US. Maybe I want to leverage the currency code field. I would say, okay, I could add the filter, I could close that, and then anything where the currency code was US or some other currency would not be exported. I'm going to leave that off because I don't have a ton of records. It's important to note that your filtering and your fields are optional. You do not have to go in and look at those. But again, my strong recommendation is that you only deal with the fields and the filters that you need, or fields in the data that you need. So now that we've found the right table, we know we're dealing with the fields that we need, and we've dealt with the filters and made sure that it's filtered to only the correct data that we need, we can go ahead and export our data. So you will select the line, and under Prepare Excel, you can say Export to Template. If I only have one line selected, I will have one Excel file with just that tab of customer, let's say. If I had selected multiple lines, I would have one Excel sheet with multiple tabs. So I can go ahead, I'm going to say Export to Template, and my Excel template will open. So in order to make changes, I'm going to enable the editing. Go. So here I can see that in A1, I've got the package file that I set. I've got the caption for the table ID, and here I have the table ID. So it's really important that we keep those there, because when we go to import back in, we want to make sure that the system knows where it should put the data. What table should it deal with? Which package should it deal with, to make sure that it's got the right fields and filters. You can see here that I've got a little table of information that has been exported. If I hover over, I'm able to see information about that field and some of the validation. So I have the ability to see that this is a code. It's a 20, which means that it's going to be a lookup to my salesperson table, and it can't be more than 20 characters. Here I can see this is a text field, which can't be more than 100 characters. I also see here the table data that's encompassed in this blue section, or this blue and white section. So now users can go ahead and they can start updating this data so that later we can import it back. Any questions? Let me know.